Up and running, and Liverpool is loud.
Hi everybody, welcome back to the Villa Park podcast. It's me tonight, Kev, and I'm joined for the first time together with Max. Max, how you doing, mate?
Not too bad, thanks. How's it going?
Yeah, not too bad considering the weekend. I don't know about you, but I'm still so annoyed about it. It ruined my weekend, even though it happened on Sunday afternoon.
It just wasn't great. It just was. It's just you get into it and you think you get excited about it. Especially with being in the right form, going to Anfield, you don't expect much, but then still expect better than what it was.
Yeah, it was disappointing. We'll get into the bones of all of that tonight. Welcome to everyone that's come into the show so far. As a reminder, as always, if you give us a like as you come in, if you're not already subscribed, please, it would be great if you would consider doing that because we're pushing towards 2,500. That's our next target. And of course, you've got to be a member, support the channel. There'll be a talking tactics coming through. Myself and Gareth will be going through the real bones of exactly what happened. And it'd be really good, actually, because there's a good big word for me coming here now, juxtaposition between Burnley victory away from home and obviously confident performance could have been more. And obviously the Liverpool defeat. So keep an eye out for that. So yeah, if you could support the channel in any way, that's much appreciated. But I'll dive into some of the comments now. Adam's here. Evening all. Hi, how you doing, Adam? Duncan as well. How you doing, mate? Deontay. Hi, mate. Steve, CC, Rachel, Richard. Some of the usual ones. So hi, everybody. Max, let's talk about what I think is, and it shouldn't be this significant for one player to make such a difference, but do you think we're missing Mings at the moment?
I think you can tell a difference between him being there and not being there. I also think that his injury and the manner of how it happened has affected it as well. But at the same time, I kind of think no one was saying it when we beat Burnley and we beat Hibs and we beat Everton. So I'm not sure. I don't read too much into it. I'm not sure about it, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit of a rhetorical question when I asked it because, and I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter. We've even had it on our own pod group, haven't we? There's been a few people saying, well, surely one player can't make that much difference. But I think for me, like the minute that we lost him in the Newcastle game, there was a real drop off, I think, in terms of belief and confidence. And I think against the tougher teams, as we saw the weekend at Anfield, I just think we've lost a massive character from that team. And it's really showing when you particularly ally that with the lack of Premier League experience that our centre-backs have got. What do you reckon?
It's hard to put it, but it's something he adds that there isn't there when he's not. Just from the games in lockdown and stuff, when you could hear him over everyone in the stadiums, like his voice just booms around the ground. So I think he missed that. I think the high line misses him as well because obviously he's like marshalling it up and down. So, and I think Torres seems to get flustered quite easily at the minute. I don't know if it's just because he's new or whatever it might be, but he seems to have a mistake in him at the minute, which is a bit of an issue.
Yeah, I think it's going to be difficult for anyone adjusting to the Premier League. I don't think Torres has been great. No. In those two games, but if you look at a lot of players when they're new to the Premier League, they get gently eased in. I mean, look what Man City do; they don't play most of their new signings much in the first season. Look at Grealish. Look at the influence he had first season, and obviously Calvin Phillips, and they were established players that knew the Premier League. And it's really well known that a lot of players can take a bit of time to adjust. So, I mean, Pau Torres has been thrust into it, hasn't he? Earlier than we probably thought that he would be, and I feel a bit sorry for him, but that's just the Premier League, isn't it? And you've got to be good enough.
I think he will be good enough. I think he has, in terms of what Unai Emery wants, in terms of playing out from the back and all that kind of thing. I think he's I think he's been good at that element. I think just strange mistakes like the one at the weekend, giving away the corner for the first goal after 2 minutes. That's the kind of things that you have to build. You can't make those mistakes in those big games because, as you say, like Szoboszlai just smashes it in from the edge of the box, and that's 1-0, and we don't look like coming back from there at that point already.
Yeah. I mean, I'll just go through a few comments. Adam says massively missing Mings, our best defender. I'll start a few of the ones. So some good comments about the game itself. CC says we're missing Mings, especially when we play the high line and on corners, and definitely as a leader, he's so vocal at the back. Yeah, I agree. Rachel says, I think it's the back line still isn't used to each other, so the experiences and relationships aren't there yet. It's an absolutely valid point. Adam says Torres is far too slow on the turn. Rich says, well said. And for the calibre of players, Adam says, player he's meant to be, he should be better already. Rach says Torres reads the game so well. Normally he puts himself in the right place, but because he's having to learn the job, it's just adjustment. Duncan says he's a top player. It's the high line, expresses everybody. I think a player like Torres as well needs to be along an imposing centre-half. I think that's kind of that almost, little and large, if you get my point, combination. And Mings, one thing he adds massively is that physicality, which, Konza is probably the next best we've got if Carlos is injured to that. And he's still not Mings, is he? Mings would be dominating the ball. He'd be winning headers. He'd be throwing his body on the line. But also, he's quicker than a lot of people give him credit for, and that's why that high line worked. And without him there, I mean, let's talk about this. Do you think we can play the high line in games like that away from home? We've done it against Newcastle, and we've now done it against Liverpool, and it's been a massive failure in both games.
I think, it's a risk and reward system, isn't it, really? Because sometimes they'll be throwing goal, but it will be offside, and you get one shot off and whatever. But then I think it's just, as someone said, just getting used to each other. I think once that communication becomes more apparent, then the high line will work as it did last season, because last season it was great. So I don't think, and Unai Emery's not going to drop it.
Yeah, but I think maybe this is where possibly I absolutely love Unai. I'd have his children if that was medically possible, and it might be soon. And I've come straight back from football tonight. I've not even showered to get on this podcast to talk about the Villa. So I think my love is unwavering, but I think the one thing where maybe he might have a flaw is against the bigger teams. I was listening to a bit of Talk Sport this morning, and there was some talk around about his record. Apparently, wasn't great at Arsenal against some of the bigger teams. And is he almost a bit too stubborn and stuck in his ways? Now, we'll point to good results against the likes of a Man United at home, a Spurs and a Chelsea away last season, but I don't think we played the same style of football as the high line we did against Newcastle and Liverpool. Does he need to be a bit more flexible and not so stubborn, shall we say, to play the same way, particularly when the personnel doesn't seem like it meets it? Because this man here, Torres, he is struggling, isn't he? Yeah,
it's just, especially he's been thrown in, and Carlos hasn't played either. Konsa's playing right back. And you've got Digne, he stayed now obviously, but was looking like he was quite an unsettled back four. I think it'll only get better, to be honest. I think it works until it doesn't, and that's the problem. I think it's only going to get better, but at the minute it is causing us issues, especially against bigger teams, obviously, like we've seen with Newcastle and Liverpool. So,
yeah, I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to be too melodramatic about it, and I don't think we need to throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's very easy for Villa fans, a lot of football fans, to be negative. Someone I work with is a Leicester fan. They've won 6 out of 7. And apparently, some of the fans are going mental at the weekend because they've lost the game. There's always got to be a little bit of, just reality. I mean, I think Man United fans are probably going through this at the moment. Some of them are absolutely spitting feathers, saying Ten Hag shouldn't be there. He took them from absolutely doing nothing to top 4 Champions League qualification, 2 cup finals. And sure, it's not perfect, but, a bit of reality. So I think we need a bit of reality. This season, we've had 2 good wins against Hibernian. We beat Everton, we beat Burnley. That being said, they're games you'd expect us to win. And in the past, Villa teams often used to struggle in those type of games. So that's a positive. But I also feel that we were a lot closer to teams like Newcastle and obviously Liverpool last season. So should we have strengthened more of the transfer market if we haven't got the personnel that we need to play well against those teams? Is it just a case of waiting for the injuries to come back? Will that make a difference? What do you reckon, mate?
I just think it's, if you're giving us 6 points at the start of the season, you probably would have taken it, given it was Newcastle and it was Newcastle and Liverpool away. And you take the 2 wins against smaller or lesser teams, and then you carry on. But it's just the way we've lost that's been the frustrating thing. You can't lose 5-1 or 3-0 in. Even if you smash Burnley and you smash Everton, what we have, you just can't. You cannot like play the way we've been playing against these bigger teams and just get smashed, because it just, like, I think it was John McGinn that said it afterwards. He said, we can't settle for a roller coaster season. You can't go from winning 4-0 to losing 3-0 next week. It's not sustainable, because eventually the losses are going to become more frequent, and it won't work for the season.
Yeah, I just think it's the gap. I mean, it's not like I think we were lucky for it to only be the result against Newcastle 5, and we were lucky it was only 3 against Liverpool. Sure, we had a few chances, we did, and we should have probably scored a goal or 2, but it's not like we were unlucky in terms of, it should have been 3-3 and it was both ends. I think it probably should have been a bit more like 8 or 9-2, if the chances were taken. So for me, the concern is it's the gap between the player. And let's be clear as well, Liverpool were missing their best 2 centre halves.
Yeah. I think, funny, I think Joe Gomez was one of their best players though. So on the day, I think it's all a bit reactionary at the minute. I think it's last week, everyone's saying, we're back, we're going to do this. And then this week we lose and everyone's back to how we were after Newcastle. I think there's a squad, especially the defence, that's pretty brand new. I think, and as you said, we had chances against Liverpool. The RB still look good. I think Sam would want us to talk about Watkins, but that might be later.
We'll come to Watkins. Right,
so I don't think we played so badly that it's necessary to say we need to change this. I think it was they took their chances and we didn't, and that's what big games come down to, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, but I mean, there's a big thing for me, and I think it is a massive issue at the moment, and that is a lack of intensity. I think there seems to be in those 2 defeats. We got blown away by both teams, really. I think. I mean, I'm not saying it was as bad against Liverpool, but it feels like we were feeling the heat much more than they were. It felt like they were quick as everything. Every second ball, they looked like they were going to score every time they went forward. We had players, I think, Kamara struggled again, and McGinn was pretty quiet. We'll come on to Watkins later on. It feels like, when you see the press that Liverpool have got or that Newcastle did, that we were doing at some points last season. I mean, what do you think's happened to that? Why do you think there's such a lack of intensity?
That's the one thing that is annoying me the most at the minute, is we're so quick to down tools when it's not going our way. I think when you see the Everton game and everyone's showboating at 4-0, I don't like Coutinho doing roulette spins and Duran doing this and that, and no look passes from Zaniolo at Burnley and stuff like that. But then as soon as it's 3-0 at Anfield and the crowd's against you and it's not going your way, everyone seems to just shoulders drop. Everyone's just kind of there seems to be just an element of just giving up, but which I wouldn't have said I expected of an Unai Emery team. That's the thing that's confusing me the most.
Yeah. I think we are carrying players, and I think there has to be some perspective. But listen, I'll just fire into a few more comments. Let me just. Yeah, there was a couple earlier on. John Steele, hi John. How many teams will win at Anfield this season? We were poor, but we'll bounce back. This is still a work in progress, and it has to be said that Klopp was very complimentary. Naturally, he would be, but over the top at his own team. So it's one of the best performances. So you can get a situation where if you catch Brentford on their best day, then they beat Man United 4-0, for example. So I mean, you can get good days and bad days for teams. Mikey 64 Homes, hi guys, keep it real. We've played 2 top teams and lost 8-1 over 2 games. Not good at all. I agree. That's the issue for me. It's the gap. It's the chasm of the defeat. We've obviously had a few comments about Torres and Mings. Here we are. AFC Watsy. If injuries to 3 or 4 key players is always going to hamper us. New players need time to gel. Getting Ramsey back ASAP will be massive for Villa. Yeah, that left-hand side of Ramsey and Moreno is huge, isn't it? And I know Dini's done well, but you know we're almost a bit of a flat-track bully, aren't we? We're beating the Burnleys and the Hibs, but you know it's and that's good. That's a good kind of vein of form to get into. We win at home a lot, but yeah, I mean, it just feels like those players have made more of a difference than I felt they maybe should. Obviously, we went through a few comments about Torres. And I do think that, you know, maybe he's been a bit unfairly maligned. John still says playing a highline Anfield didn't work with Mings in the side last season. Mings is a huge loss, but we'll be fine. CC says, no, we can't. I thought we recognised after Newcastle we had to put the highline on the back burner for a while. Why do we need to do it so desperately? I am totally with you, CC. AJ Brannigan says, hello again. I don't really understand how we play the high line without a lot of pressing. Newcastle, Liverpool, and Brighton all press high to prevent giving time to players accurate balls to break the line. Absolutely, and I'm sure Gareth will go through this on the Talking Tactics, but it felt like every time we tried to play those passes between the lines, they were closing them down really quickly. Their work rates just seemed better than ours, and that's the really worrying thing. Rate says high line and high rewards. Yeah, I agree, but against Liverpool away and Newcastle away, that's naive for me. CC says, I think against big teams, he does overthink it. He will have to learn. And if losing like that gets the message to him, then it was worth losing for the sake of the rest of the season. I think it's a really valid point. I thought that the Newcastle loss day one would have made him think, crikey, something needs to happen here. So, you know, that's 2 bloody noses you've had away from home. Let's see what happens against the next big team we play away. Adam says we can't handle him on pace, but worry him. Torres has played in 4 Prem games. Duncan says he's still settling in time. The spotlight was on certain other players. We'll definitely do that. And Duncan, let us know who you want to have the spotlight on. Rach says someone said on Twitter we're a victim of our own success. Our expectations have gone up and we do need to drop them a little. Rach, I agree with you, says Adam. We're getting a bit too crazy, as CC agrees as well. Adam says, I don't mind losing against the big teams, but we shouldn't be looking like we're going to lose them by 4 or 5 goals every game. Bang on. I totally agree with that point. Yep. CC says, Liverpool may have been without VVD, but as Klopp said, every single player played at the highest level to beat us. Almost a perfect game for them. Yep. John says, United lost 7 at Anfield last season. If they finished third, it's the 4th game of a long season. We need to accept we're still progressing. That's a pretty rational comment, John. I appreciate that. Right, says, I do think the Crystal Palace game is a better barometer of where we actually are. Okay, yeah, it's a reasonable point. Danny Bradley. Hi, Danny. Unfortunately, I feel like Pau Torres will be the hill Emery dies on. Oh, wow. I really hope not. CC says, I didn't think we were blown away by Newcastle until the 50th minute onwards against Liverpool. There was 0 press. The whole team retreated from the first minute, almost like that was the plan. Dunk says the goals are from poor set pieces. Steve says, has the opposition worked out our box midfield? I think so. It's a very valid point. John says, again, bear in mind that only City could play well while missing 4 of their best players. I think it's a really good point. Rich says we need Ramsey back ASAP. And Rachel says the issue ultimately is we are guessing, are the players being told to press or not, or are the pressing triggers not there? Time will tell. Comments are flying in, so really appreciate it, guys. This is, again, a quick reminder. Give us a like if you haven't already liked the pod. That would be really appreciated. And obviously subscribe. We'd really appreciate the support with that. Paul Walford, hi, Paul, says, I think playing the Conference League, then you see your best Villa and change the way we play. Ramsey and Moreno come back will make us a lot better. And January window, I think 3 new players will come. Okay, so my other thought is, do you think with the loss of Mings that there should have been a situation where we replaced Mings with a like-for-like? Longley's a good ball-playing player, similar, I think, to Torres in maybe some ways. Should we replace Mings with a dominating, strong centre-half if he's going to be out for the season?
Well, Langley's literally as close to Torres as basically possible to be. He's a ball progressor. These numbers progressing are pretty much as good as Torres, maybe a bit worse. So, and then obviously Conser and Carlos are a lot more similar in terms of winning the ball and stuff. So I think he's fought, well, whether he has or not, in terms of he's got 2 ball playing that play on the left, and then he's got 2 centre backs who are a bit more like stoppers that play on the right hand side. And I think Mings is something different. I think that, but I also think having someone that's sitting on the bench that's going to be that kind of Mings player, I think could be a bit dangerous, because I think that kind of player needs to be. Mings played so much better last year when he was playing every game, whereas like the season before, and the Gerrard was kind of in and out. I think that kind of player needs week on week just to have that concentration, because otherwise it can be a bit lost.
Yeah, and maybe thinks Diego Carlos is going to be that player who's back fit, and then obviously he's got an injury. So I mean, we wish him well, Diego. I think he was showing some decent form, albeit against a couple of teams that played like pub teams. No offense to Everton and Hibs, but it seemed like he didn't have any strapping on it when he came off. So hopefully we'll get an update on what's going on with him. I think just before we move into other players, for me again, I've got the perspective. I appreciate, some of the comments around obviously that Liverpool, there was a 7-0 with Man United. There's been, Man United last season, I've seen that going around. I think they shipped 6 to City, 4 to Arsenal. So it can happen. Man United, I don't think are a very good team. And now I know we've got to be realistic, but let's be clear and look at this now. We finished 7th last season, but the real sense of barometer for us is that 2023 was second in terms of points. So should a team across that time period be losing by as many goals and looking like it could be a lot more? I don't think they should. And I think I've just got to call this as I say it. I don't think it's good enough. I don't think it's good enough to have such a gap in class and ostensibly effort. Now, I'm not saying the players aren't trying. I would never give that to them. But it feels like the intensity it isn't there. And that's the key bit for me. It just feels like, we shouldn't be getting beaten. It was 3-0, but it didn't feel like a 3-0. We didn't lay a glove on them, from my perspective. We had a couple of chances, I get it. But, they were just... Alexander-Arnold, let's talk about that for a second. I mean, it was an absolute walk in the park for him. It was just strolling around midfield. He was pinging passes as much as he wanted to. Wasn't getting closed down. I mean, were you surprised by that?
I thought it was weird. I think he's like their quarterback. He's the guy they're going to give the ball to find people, and just leaving him free, especially he was just in the middle of the park on his own. And I thought that kind of get McGinn off the left, or as it started, I thought he would just be on him. Just you can have McGinn sitting on him, and then that frees everyone else up to. I think you press him, and then it's a completely different game, because he was just spraying balls over the top for Núñez and for Salah and for Diaz, and we were on the half turn the whole game. That was the difference for a lot of the game.
Yeah, I agree. John's popped up a comment saying only 5 likes. It's easy, folks. Hit the like button. Yes, please, everyone. If you could like, it helps other people find us. I did have a guy say to me randomly at football the other night, "Oh, I stumbled across your podcast." That's because it's popping up more and more the more likes we get. So please help us grow the channel. Give us a like if you can. Just click that button. That'd be great. The thing about, just to go back to the Mings point, and CC put a comment here. Easier said than done. Mings isn't an easy type player to replace, and Carlos is our closest. I agree with that point, but we don't run the football club. We've recruited this absolute guru head of football operations in Monchi. We've got an absolute master in Unai Emery. We've attracted players of high caliber to the club. I just think I want to have greater expectations on our team. And if you've got such a dominant player, then I feel like maybe, we should just have a better option than we've got right now, because we're just looking a bit threadbare, aren't we? Paul Walford says maybe Mings and Mourinho could back in February. I mean, that is wishful thinking. I really hope you're right. But I don't think so for an ACL. But you never know, D. I mean, the strange things have happened. Let's just do a couple more comments, and then we'll go into a big talking point. So Rach says the break is a good thing. Emery players need to evaluate and assess what the plans are and the tactics. I do massively back Unai, massively back the main man. I think, just because we've had a situation where obviously we've had a couple of bad defeats. There is obviously some positive things. We're through to the Conference League group stages. We've had a couple of decent wins against Everton and Burnley, handsome wins. It was the flip of what we're arguing. It should have been a lot more against both those teams for us. So in Unai we trust. But yeah, it's maybe a good time after that kind of defeat. It's maybe good we haven't got a game to come straight back to. So yeah, I hope they use that break wisely. Let's talk about a pretty contentious topic, I think, and splits many Villa fans. But Ollie Watkins form. Let's talk about Ollie Watkins. So I'll let you go, Max. Give me your thoughts.
I did an article about it the other day. I think what he adds in terms of a play, like stuff he does for the team, you aren't going to replace him with many better than what he does in terms of link-up play, running in behind, and all that kind of dirty work that goes a bit unnoticed. That you'd only see like if you watch a full game. But then at the same time, at the minute, his touch and his goal scoring is just non-existent. Really strange how he goes from looking like he's found his form again against Hibs, scoring a hat-trick, like with tap-ins at the back post and all that kind of thing, looking like he's back at his best, but just still can't get that Premier League goal, and it's really strange. He's just his first touch for me. It's just really heavy every single time. It just scuppers any chance of him going, and it also ruins an attack half the time because, especially against Liverpool, he was taking a touch and Diaby was flying past him, and his touch was off, and the defender was in, and then that's the thing that's a bit concerning. Is that he's not seeming to get better neither. He seems just to be getting this same bad touch, slowing down the attack every week.
Yeah, I mean, we wrote him off a bit last season under Gerrard, early under Emery, and then he came back with an absolute bang once Ings got sold and scored, another 12 goals in the second half of the season to finish on, 15? So, I mean, you got to be honest that, going up to the last couple of games of the season, we were thinking he's the best thing since sliced bread. Let's get him on a new contract. Clearly, there's a lot of positivity around what he's done. We all know the figures and stats around 10 goals plus per season. And I think when he's on it, I think he's great. I think, Rich and I have had this chat on the pod before that, Liverpool particularly have struggled against Watkins. Van Dijk, you could tell, really struggles against Watkins. But Max, I think you bang on, mate. At the moment, I watch Watkins play, and I think the stat is he scored 1 in his last 10 or 11 Premier League games.
Yeah.
At the moment, his touch is terrible. I mean, it keeps bouncing off him. He's not linking play at all. He's not taking his chances. And it feels like at the moment, when he's in the team, and I'm going to say it, Bailey, a couple of touches, did past 2 players, but got hooked about, 40 minutes after coming on. There wasn't happy, went straight down the tunnel, which I think is always a bad sign. But when it reminds me a little bit of a situation when we had, when like Al Ghazi and Trezeguet just wouldn't do much, and then all of a sudden you feels like you're playing with 9 players.
Yeah.
And at the moment, we haven't got seemingly got the option, unless we do something. There's been a few comments about SG player Diaby there, put Zaniolo in. But I don't think Watkins is adding anything at the moment. The point is always that he brings everything to the team. What did he bring to the team? But at the moment, I don't know what he's bringing to the team.
The issue comes, it felt like getting rid of Ings and having less strong competition brought the best out of him. But now we've got no competition after selling Archer. And as much as I love John Duran, he was horrendous on Sunday. So I don't think he's the answer at the minute either. So Watkins has got to be that guy, isn't he?
Yeah. I feel like I'm going to do something I thought I'd never do, but I'm going to criticise Unai. I think the decision, and I know Sam will love me for saying this, I think the decision to sell Archer and not replace him with a similar player, well, not similar, but another striker, is a real mistake. It didn't backfire when we sold Ings, and we all thought, we'll be bringing someone else in, surely, and we didn't. It didn't backfire then. And we haven't spent that much money. I can't feel like FFP will be a massive consideration, like it should be for a Forest or a Chelsea or whatever. But is it sod's law that we sell Archer and he goes and basically scores 2 goals at the weekend? He obviously is so unlucky with the second shot, but gets the just rewards and scores a really good first goal. And, is that sod's law? But, is that what we're missing? Is that what we could have had?
I just think the logic is there to sell. Whether someone, I think with Ramsey, with Archer, Philogene, Davis, I think to sell them does make sense as a bigger picture. But especially Archer, it seems like if there was no replacement coming in, it made sense to keep him till January. I think Sheffield United would have been there in January, and then you can see if I don't really. I understand it from a point of FFP and it's pure profit, as Top already says, and stuff like that. But it just didn't make sense not to have someone there. And I mean, you might have all the faith in the world in John Duran, but he's so rash and so raw that I just don't see that working as a sustainable option, especially if Watkins, even though he's not scoring, if Watkins got injured, we would be 10 times worse going forward, I think, anyway.
Do you know what John Duran reminds me of? Like a YouTuber.
Yeah.
Like he's got a few skills. He's got a big personality. When I watch John Duran playing, it's like I'm watching Soccer Aid.
He's like a guy who's won a competition.
Yeah,
and he's all right. He's decent at football, but he's kind of just been chucked in. I do like him. I think he's really down to earth and all that kind of. As a person, he's sound enough and all that. But at the minute, as sad as it is to say, I just don't know how to see a world where it works.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I like my Amazon delivery driver. He's a lovely fella, but he has to deliver packages to me. If he gives them to the wrong house, then I've got a problem. Yeah, do you know when you watch like Usain Bolt and Soccer Aid or something like that, and you see like just athletic and but where's that shot going? You nearly hit the corner flag. And I mean, the fact he did it twice, I mean, terrible decision making.
Even the commentator said, I can't remember who it was, but even the commentator was saying he's done it once and it was never going to trouble Alisson, and now he's done it again. You just cannot do it. You can't pick up the ball and just shoot from wherever you're standing, no matter if there's no options or not. It's just such a waste of time. He may as well not come on because he was just picking up the ball and having a wallop, and then trying to square up to Joe Gomez for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, ridiculous. I mean, it does remind me a little bit of me at 7-a-side, which is not a compliment in terms of like where we're shooting his Premier League player. So I think that is, as a backup, that is, I think we are weak when you think about that. And then obviously for Archer to go and do what he's done. Let me fire through a few comments about this again, please. If you haven't liked the video, if you can, please give us a like. That'd be much appreciated. And obviously share, tell your friends about it. We're trying to grow as much as we can to 2,500 as the next target. So Duncan alluded to this earlier. Here we are. How about our 30 million Brentford signing up front? Worst player on the pitch on Sunday. I totally agree. So yeah, that's a really valid point. Adam says we've no other options but Watkins up top. Sadly, they're Duncan. If Watkins isn't in form, we have no stock options to replace. Yeah, and I think this should have been dealt with. Now, let me just again throw a question amongst these comments. If Watkins keeps going on this barren spell, it's all well and good scoring a few goals against Hibs or Burnley. If he goes in this barren spell and doesn't score for a few more games, then the pressure is going to get higher and higher, and the questions will be out about why we didn't bring in another forward player. And I know you can say it's a difficult market, but what we're paying Monchi the money for? What's the whole point of that network? So yeah, good comment there, Adam. Dunk says, I think, if I can call you Dunk, I think that's the main recruitment question this summer. Adam, Archer scores and David against Sheffield United. And by the way, I mean, I was listening to the radio and I was absolutely rooting for him. I think when I felt like it was a good deal getting 18 million for him, whatever it was, 18, 19 million for him, I said that, just like I predicted us to finish top 4, I said that with a view that we would strengthen these areas. You don't legislate for the injuries that you get, and you don't legislate for the fact that we don't bring anyone else in other than Longley in the last week of the window. Richard Edwards says that's why I thought we would have gotten a striker. Yeah, absolutely correct. Yeah, Adam agrees. It's our biggest failing this window. Duncan says strikers' job is to score and goals change matches. Yeah, totally. And who's to say better decision making from a Duran, and maybe back in that game, if you're not 3-0 down, if you're 2-0 down, I mean, it's fine margins. Cash's header goes in, who knows. Rachel says, Duncan, Archer isn't the answer. I love Archer, but he needs to get Sheffield United for his own progression. Well, I can get on board with that argument as well, because maybe he wouldn't get the game time to be able to develop into the kind of player he is, but I think he's a decent option to bring off the bench if you're looking for a goal. So, yeah, Paul says, Kevin and Max, why don't we put Kamara at centre-back alongside Pau? Yeah,
no,
the worry...
Not for me.
Yeah. Well, what's your reticence around that?
I think if he was playing for anyone else in the world, everyone would be raving about him. He's might have the odd game but he's just, I think he's a different class half the time. Him and Douglas Luiz next to each other I just don't understand them. You just wouldn't take them two apart, because you take out Kamara, put him at centre back, and then you've got McGinn back in centre midfield where he was kind of anonymous with Gerrard, or you put in Den Donker, who I'm repping now, but he looks a bit off the pace. So I don't think it needs changing personally. I think it did work miracles last year. It's just sometimes it doesn't go to plan, and you concede 3 goals to one of the best teams in the league. I think it just happens.
Yeah, there is a concern for me though. I think Kamara's form against some of the bigger teams. I love Kamara. I've responded to many a Twitter poll saying who's the greatest midfielder, and there's pictures like Pirlo and and Gascoigne and and Rivaldo, and I'll put like a response saying, "Are you all drunk?" And there'll be a picture of Kamara, because I absolutely love him. I think he's brilliant, but I do think I think he needs to be a bit more physical, and I think he needs to develop physically a bit more, because I think he's getting bossed if you see him in some of those games. We slightly digress. Duncan says we need more striker options for sure. Absolutely, we do. Adam says we gave Trent too much respect. Yeah, I think it's a really, really good point. Rach says if you want a physicality, Kamara really isn't there. He could do it, but I don't think it's the right one yet. So that's really good. Dunk says, how about we try Diaby up front with Zanio Obiano versus Palace? I am on board with that. Whether Watkins will be too happy, but that's Unai's job, isn't it, to he wants. And also, is Palace at home an opportunity for Watkins to get back on the goal street? And has he earned the right to have a few more opportunities? Sorry. So yeah, we'll see around that. Rachel says again, we didn't do the right one, but Duncan Archer isn't the option. So yeah, I think that's remains to be seen, doesn't it? Quick question for everyone. Pop it in the comments. Who do you think will score more goals this season, Archer or Watkins? Let us know. Who do you think will score more goals this season, Max, Archer or Watkins? It's
hard to say because Archer's obviously playing the worst team, but then again he scored at the weekend. So I think Watkins will he'll get there. I think he will score goals. But yeah. If his expected goals are there, I know not a lot of people like expected goals and that kind of measure, but you don't underperform forever. There's a good player there. He'll be there. He'll be back at some point, hit scoring again, and then we won't be having this conversation anymore. So just how it works. We go around in circles. We were saying this a year ago, and then he scored 15 goals last season. So it's always I think he'll probably good, to be honest. I think Archer will do well at Sheffield United because he's a finisher, but I think he thrives off playing more. Like he seems to get more out of playing full game and getting amongst it, whereas you can't really do that off the bench. Yeah, well, let's see if Archer keeps it going. No, I think that's going to give him a lot of confidence. Adam says we didn't buy a striker this summer, so I can't see that changing in January. Harder to get one then. Yeah, that's not our job to try and find someone. It's the job of these recruitment experts. So yeah, Master P says it's time for Emery. Good for Emery to take time to look at things, but we want to get out of our system. I think he's referring to Durrani. Adam, I like it, but we've shot ourselves in the foot. We have no choice to play Watkins every game, no matter what. Paul says it's a learning curve and experiment and knows how to keep it tight against Newcastle, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City, Arsenal, Brighton. Yeah, we need to be able to do that against those teams. Master P says in Watkins we trust. We have no choice but just back him. Okay. Here's one for you. Steve says, side note, El Ghazi been released. It's available on free. I love the idea of El Ghazi getting Unai'd and adding huge amounts of value to him and being a legend. But we remember how consistent it was before. And if we're worried about someone's wayward shooting, then with Duran, I think we'd have two if El Ghazi was back. Would you be happy to get El Ghazi back? I think it would be a horrific signing. Not that I don't like him, but he can't. If he's not playing, we've released him for a reason. He wasn't getting the game at Everton under Lampard, and then he's gone to PSV and been released. So I can't say what happens anyway. But I also, as much as I love the guy, it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think that's the right decision. Although I don't think he's any worse than Bailey, but we won't get into that. Adam says Watkins is what he is. He'll have good patches and bad patches, but where he looks useless, that's never changing. Yeah, that's a concern I think for us where we want to get to. CC says Watkins needs to be supplied when he's cut off, as he was against Liverpool. It was mediocre. His weaknesses come to the forefront. I think having Zaniolo instead of Bailey will help drive us forward. I totally agree. Dunk says he's 1 in 11. God, that is pretty worrying for a striker. And look, he didn't get an England squad, so you thought there might have been a reaction on the back of that. Masterpiece says he's got more goal contributions as anyone else other than Harry Kane. Yeah, that was a stat. It was right up there. Dunk says you of course you dunk again if that's all right. You bank on Diaby to score any big chance. Yeah, I think he was the real. I mean, let's briefly talk about Diaby. He was. I think he was the standout player for me at the weekend. What do you reckon?
He's another player that's just it seems like a level above. It just surprises me that we've got him, and especially for in today's market, which seems so cheap, considering we were looking at Doku as well. He's gone to City, and he's gone for 65. We got Diaby for 50-ish, I think. So I think he's just so good. Even against Liverpool, we didn't look great, and he still just carves out chances. Yeah, I think he's really good.
Yeah, he looked the difference, didn't he? He looked the difference, but I think we're a little bit toothless in attack against some of these big teams. If you've got, I think Bailey didn't do anything really. His retention of possession, Bailey sometimes is so frustrating. Watching him and Watkins, the ball bouncing off them, I want to throw things at the TV. I've got a fairly new TV, so I need to try not to do that. But yeah, it's so frustrating because that should be a real basic, shouldn't it? Yeah, a few comments about El Ghazi, so we don't have to go into that. Rach says the stats back up. Ollie is a good striker. It does it in clumps rather than all the time. So yeah, I think that's absolutely right. Eden Hazard's available as well. Steve says on the free list, grasping at straws here. But then there's rumours of Coutinho going out potentially on loan. I mean, is that an error if Coutinho goes? If he's fit soon, if we haven't got anyone else, do we need him as an option? I think that I think that's a valid point. What do you reckon?
I'm not sure I'd go for Hazard. I do think it's a bit weird to loan. Well, to get rid of Coutinho after the window's closed. I think even if he wasn't playing so much, he does have a little bit about him, especially for Europe. I thought he'd be staying. So I think against especially like these smaller teams and European teams, I think the way he just like glides around the pitch, I think he'd be ideal. But obviously, I think it's another one where they've offered a fee that's going to be hard to turn down, and then I think they're looking at the future as much as they are about the present. I think that's where some of the inconsistencies are coming.
Yeah, well, if we sell him, I guess I can understand it, but I think at the moment maybe we need him. CC says El Ghazi with a love heart. So yeah, clearly good memories. Cool as ice for the penalty spot. I'd have him back over Traore. Truthfully, letting Archer go potentially big miss. Yeah, Rach says, do you remember Arch scored against Everton? No offense, Duran scored against them. Yeah, I think it's a valid point, Rachel. But what I would say is the manner of the goals. Duran nearly first touch nearly ended up in the canal. Not far from the ground. And Archer's was such a great finish because Burnley pinged the ball back to him quite hard. Actually, it was probably a bit firmer than it should have been. And the second goal came out of absolutely nothing. Did a little bit of a turn. Great strike, unlucky not to score. So I think it's the quality there, like the signs. It feels like he's as a finisher. Proved it in the Championship, obviously. Different league, Premier League. Did some good stuff for Villa. Did it for England 21s. I still maintain he would have been really, really good to keep around the squad based on the options we've got up front. Adam says, we moan about Watkins, but got up as we've got into. I totally agree. Absolutely. It's a very, very valid point. CC says, my head tells me Archer needs game time for development. Looks like he was third in line, but my heart tells me he needed to be with us. I don't see how Archer can be behind Duran unless Duran is unbelievable in training. CC says, did you see him square up? Yeah. To Gomez? Yeah, absolutely. What was that all about? Masterpiece says, if he can tighten up his technique, he'll be a player. He's only 19. Yeah, I agree with that. But this is the Premier League. Again, I'll come back to the point. If your Amazon delivery driver keeps delivering your package to the wrong house and they go, oh, he's only new, you're going to get a bit pissed off. Like, it's the Premier League. We got to play in the Premier League. It's happening now. We've got a big opportunity. Chelsea are nowhere near it. Man United are nowhere near it. Spurs, all right, great. It's big Ange Ball. What a great tune, right? But they've lost Harry Kane, and I think we can compete with them. Newcastle have been stinking since they beat us. There's an opportunity for us to break into the top four this season. I know we're further away than maybe we think we are, and Liverpool, I think, better than we thought they would be. But I think we've got to believe a bit more. Rach says, Archer, isn't a one-up top striker right now. He needs to be in a 2, which we don't play here, but we could. I mean, it's another option, isn't it? But I get the point. So yeah, just quite a few comments there about Archer. Rub says Archer wasn't going to play. I think he needs to move on. Kay says if Watkins was hitting the back of that regularly, playing for one of the big boys, yeah, it's probably a valid point. It probably is a valid point, isn't it? Adam says I'd have taken Origi even for the bench. Now there's a point, Max. He's gone to Forest, hasn't he? He was there. What do you reckon to that?
I mean, I just think for the sake of having someone, I don't know. I just think it's people get annoyed when we sign players who aren't that great. So like when we signed no one last season, then we signed Augustinson, for example. People were annoyed that we weren't signing anybody, but then annoyed that we have signed someone just for the sake of it. So I think I don't think a lot of the time we may as well just hold out for the player that we want and just suck it up till January. Personally, I don't think panic buying players like Origi or Hazard or El Ghazi I don't think it's going to help, because at the end of the day, there's a reason why they're not playing for the teams that they've been released from.
Yeah, Origi seems to do all right for Liverpool as a support striker. You know, he got got a few goals for them. I mean, he's come from AC Milan. I know he didn't do brilliant for them, but it's not like it's a pretty good team. You know, I'm not saying his record's phenomenal, but I don't think he'd be first choice at Forest because Awaniyi's scored pretty much in every game,
and he's class as well.
Yeah, so he's back up. I don't know. I mean, obviously, Inu and I trust, but I'm obviously been criticising him a bit tonight. Rob says strikers do get through bad series without scoring. I think Watkins' form is not yet an issue, but we should have brought it forward in for sure. I think we can correctly still win it if we need be. I think it's starting to become an issue. 1 in 11, I think, is definitely a big concern. So there was a comment here from Paul, which I think I've lost. Here we are. I want to see us buy 2 gem strikers in January. Not good enough. Rach says it isn't going to happen, unfortunately. I don't think it is because January's a hard market, but I do agree. I think we need at least 1, if not 2, forward options, people that can play there. So let's see what happens with that. Rob says, I agree with the point on it being easy and nice perform against Hibs and small teams. I'll apply it to Digne, who's terrible against serious opponents. It's a really valid point. We're all going, Digne is unbelievable, isn't he brilliant? But, a lot of people that are decent left-backs would look good against Hibernian because they're not a very, very good team. There's a reason why they're struggling in the Scottish Prem. Triple Truth, Ruth, great name. Watkins is not going to sit on the bench. Yeah, he's not, but if there's another option there and he's not performing, I mean, look, the question's been there. Do you put Zaniolo in and play Zaniolo and Diaby? I think right now that is a better option. I think right now playing McGinn wide, bringing Tielemans in and Zaniolo in, I think that's arguably a better option than what we've got right now. What do you think about Diaby and Zaniolo up front and leaving Watkins out?
Not for me, I don't think. I think Diaby's been so good where he is, and he's arguably been our best player this year. I just think moving him somewhere else into a different position just hampers what he could do. I don't think Watkins, as I say, I think Watkins' touch and that kind of thing has been poor. But as everyone's saying, I think he's done it his whole career at Villa. He's scored 15 last season, half a year, and that kind of thing. I think he'll come good. I think changing things when they're working, like the RB's working, is not going to help. Like moving forward, I think that's just going to be because just not for me. I don't think. Yeah.
You may be right, but I do think something needs to change, and I do think that that Liverpool away is a hard game, but it did look a bit flat. And I think when it looks a bit flat, then maybe you need to give players an opportunity that sat in the wing. Just Tielemans need an opportunity to start. Do you need to play Dendoncker instead of Kamara? What we haven't mentioned is Chambers. Chambers is a tall centre back. Would Chambers be a bit more physical than some of the options we've got if Carlos is injured? Is he an option? It feels like he's not really. If he's brought Longley in, and you can see Longley playing, but Longley and Torres together. Longley, Torres, and Konza. I don't know. What do you reckon to that?
I like Cam Chambers. I think especially under Gerrard, he was one of our better players for that end of Gerrard's first season, and he's like him and Mings were really good at one point, but then he's just not getting that chance, and I'm not really sure why. Because when he does play, he seems like a good player, especially on the ball. He's quite adept on the ball, so I don't know why he doesn't get that chance. Maybe that anyone else. I would worry if Carlos was injured for, let's say, a few weeks, and we were looking at potentially Lenglet and Torres, or if not, Cash at right back doesn't seem to work either recently. So it would worry me if Carlos is injured for a sustained period again.
Yeah, isn't Sergio Ramos available on a free?
He's just gone to Sevilla tonight.
Oh, dang. We've got good links with Sevilla. Maybe we can get him from there straight away.
He did say he loves the Villa, though, so maybe. You never know.
Well, I've heard he's a massive fan of a Balti pie as well, so
yeah.
Maybe we can see if we can make that work. Yeah, it just came to me, but obviously that's been shot down. The question whether who'd get more goals, there's a few comments around that. Triple Truth Ruth, again, what a name. Watkins will come good. CC says, right now Archer, but Watkins in theory should. Yeah, I totally agree. In theory he should. Rachel says Watkins will. Duncan says, wouldn't surprise me if Archer scores more this season. I feel like I'm having Archer in my fantasy league team with what he did. Oh, by the way, fantasy league, I left Evan Ferguson on my bench. And I decaptained Haaland because I thought everyone else would. And I captained Sterling and he got 4 points. So, yeah, I don't want to talk about that, basically. Yeah. When Evan Ferguson getting a hat-trick was like a dagger because I wasn't sure he was going to start because I thought Jao Pedro played so well when he came on. I thought he'd get there. But anyway, we digress again. Steve thinks Watkins will get more. Adam says Watkins to score more, but he'll have patches where he isn't going to score for a few games. But Welford says he can take pens. I think it might be an Archer. Now, that's the thing. Watkins isn't going to take pens probably this season.
I think that one was El Ghazi.
Yeah, El Ghazi. Yeah, probably El Ghazi. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. If I had to pick one player in the world to take a penalty for me, it'd be El Ghazi. Cool as ice. His penalty is actually nothing like his normal shooting. Really cool. No.
Yeah.
The question around Origi, I think this was Rub says, no Johnny Evans style sign at Villa, please. CC says, I do wonder if Tammy is still on for us in January. Will he be fit by then? I'm not too sure. The most important comment tonight, it's okay to call Duncan Dunk. So that's great news. I feel reassured now. Rob says Tammy's injured. Yeah, that was, what was it, May, June, July times? So,
but
who knows?
He started every game last season until he got injured on the last day and he'd only scored 8. So, but if Watkins scored 8 this season, everyone would be saying, "Oh, we need another striker." So, and we know from Ings, you can't have two top strikers because they get in each other's way. You've got to try and accommodate them both, and it doesn't work. So there has got to be a disparity between your number one striker and then that guy who's going to come in. That's why Archer almost worked, but obviously we decided to not go with that.
Yeah, I mean, he got 25 in 75 for Roma, which is pretty decent. He's been set for a return in March, so you might be, if it's still on. And there was a big talk that the deal was basically done. So whether that meant that Watkins was going to go, I mean, who knows? Watkins still hasn't signed a contract, of course. CC says here, I thought standouts was Diaby, Konza, Luiz and Martinez with Zanio looking positive. I agree with every single bit of that comment. I thought Konza was good, actually. I thought Luiz was really good in midfield, considering what was going around him. Martinez was good and Zanio looked positive. So, yeah, I totally agree with those comments. Konza's holding the back line together, says Rach. The moment, bless him, he's really stepping up. I totally agree. And actually, with everything that's going on with all the centre-halves, as much as I feel sorry for him, I'm glad he's not gone to England. Because, he can rest and, less chance of him getting an injury. Rob says, Coutinho cannot play for more than 20 minutes in the Premier League. I don't understand the hype he still gets at Villa. I think it's the potential, isn't it? It's that, that person might be a family member, might be a friend, and, they're not quite reaching their potential. But, they've got it in them. They can be better than what they're doing. And I think it's the hope that kills you because we see the little cameos like, obviously, was it the Lazio goal where he could have combined with Buendia?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you see stuff like that. 2 players obviously now on the team. So, but yeah, I think that's a valid point. And actually, that's one of the reasons why I wasn't too bothered if we lost him in some senses because we're not losing someone that's playing regularly. It's just more the cover if you get injuries. Paul Welford says, Joanna Watkins need to practice and be stronger in training and be accurate on shooting. Yeah, I totally agree. Adam says Coutinho was finished before he came to us. Yeah, it did feel, in hindsight, now maybe like a Hazard sort of situation, like you have now where, a James Rodriguez. There's a lot of these players you feel like are maybe busted flushes now. CC says Archer's finished and he's so clean and true. He's a natural striker. That's what needs to be developed. I totally agree with this point. I know Sam will massively back me up on this. Think back to when we beat Barrow 6-0 in the Carabao Cup a couple of years back. All three of his goals were absolute quality finishes. The header that he scored against Chelsea, when he scored goals for England's 2021s, it's so rare that he doesn't strike the ball well. And that's the thing I think that that's why I think there's a difference with him. It's the quality of the finishing. I know Ings is similar and was similar in terms of being a finisher, but Archer's got physicality and he's a strong lad. He's not a baby anymore. I think he's like 21, 22. So, yeah, I still think, I know we've kind of gone back into an old point. Adam, who did you want, though? We weren't into any strikers, and a decent striker will come to us. Well, yeah, I guess we'll see what happens with that. Rachel says, his finishing was never the question. He's a true striker, Ings, but it's the other aspects he needs to work on to be at Villa. Yeah, I believe Archer can do it, though. Paul says, Villa need to play hardball like Trojans and one by one be top guys stick together. Yeah, I absolutely think there needs to be a lot of positivity now. A lot of positivity. I think the Euro Games is the perfect time if you have the opportunity to play with striking combinations, says CC. That's maybe a good shout. Get a group stage game against that Bosnian team. Maybe you try something out. Although Watkins might be clamouring to play in that game because he's got a chance. It was always like this back in the day, like international strikers wanted to play against San Marino and Malta, because I think Gary Lineker got 4 against Malta back in the day. Like, you've got a chance to get your numbers up. Look at Kane in the World Cup, got the golden boot that one World Cup, but scored 3 against Panama. So, it does help you. Duncan says Chambers and Donks should get more game time physicality. Yeah, I think agrees with you in terms of Chambers there. Rach says Longley is left footed, so I don't know how Torres and Longley will fit together. Well, I guess... Yeah, what are you going to say, Max?
Well, you can have two. Oh, it's always a weird thing because people don't like 2 left-footed centre-backs, but people are fine with 2 right-footed centre-backs. I don't think it makes too much difference in that sense.
No, I don't think it does. And I think if you have a situation where you've got Konza playing the right centre-back option, then I think you can have them there. But my worry is the physicality. Adam says we have finesse centre-backs, but no hard hitters without Mings. Totally agree. Duncan says, sorry, Duncan, as we call you now, I need to drop Isak in my fantasy football. Yeah, but you do it. I bet he'll get a hat-trick next game. Rob says Captain Sterling is a crime. I know, but I thought after getting the snub from Gareth, the Villa-hating Southgate, that I thought he might respond to that, and he played really well this season so far. So anyway, yeah, I know I won't do it again. Watch now, I'll take him off, and Haaland won't score, and Sterling will get 4. Paul says Tielemans at front, guys. Not sure about that, Paul, but maybe you know something we don't. He's a good striker with the ball. Duncan says El Ghazi and Ings do not miss pens. Yeah, but El Ghazi though, wow. Ollie hasn't signed a new contract, says Adam. So should we be that bothered by trying to sign a number 9? Number 1 striker, not guarantee Watkins will stay yet. Paul Walford says, I think we should go for David, Jonathan David. I think he means Steve Van Leer. I think maybe dropping Watkins might be a good thing for him. He knows he's the main man and there's no competition. Yeah, I think it's a valid point. Rub says, I think we need to find a striker like Awaniyi. They're there in the Belgian, German, Dutch leagues. Look at Boniface. He was again under the Belgian club. Now Dominic's a Bundesliga reachable signing. Yeah, I think we have to agree that the world is a big place and there's a lot of players doing it. So I think, I don't want to believe that Aston Villa should not be able to secure these kind of players. Ethan says Archer's playing 2 up top at someone's playoff, so it'll be good there. Watkins is not like he's missing huge chances. Well, me and Rich always used to say this. Imagine Archer playing off or Ings playing off a Keenan Davies type player. I'm not saying it's perfect, but you can kind of see where it might work. And nearly up to the comments. Not related thoughts on Maguire and Phillips getting picked. Yeah. What do you think about that, Max?
It's what Gareth Southgate does, and nothing surprises me anymore. I think I don't know. Neither of them play for their club team. That doesn't make sense, but as he likes who he likes, don't he? So yeah, it's not going to change.
Yeah, inconsistency in terms of what he does, but it is what it is, isn't it? Here's a good one. Paul Walford says he's got Johnny Evans in his fantasy league. Yeah, great stuff. Rub says captain him next week. Yeah, you never know. You might score 4. Ings playing off Diaby might have been good, says Duncan. So, God, I've been flying through the comments trying to read them all out. So that's everyone there. Do you think we need a bit of perspective on this, Max? The overall situation around the season. Obviously, we've had some good results. As I said, we made progress in the Conference League. Do you think we need to be a bit calmer about this?
Well, it is only 4. It's 4 games in at the end of the day, and we're still 10th. Like a win against Palace and a few results go your way, and then you're like 6th, and then all of a sudden it's looking rosy again. So I think the kind of conversations that are being had recently need to be in like December time and stuff like that. I think at the minute it's not too pressing. I think, as I say, if we'd got 6 points, if we'd been given 6 points at the start of the season, like before we kicked off in the first 4 games, you probably would have taken it as a gamble. So I think there needs to be some perspective. I think, especially we've played 2 more games than everyone else as well with Hibs. So I'm not too worried at the moment, personally.
Well, September, obviously we've got the break, and then from the 16th of September, we've got quite a few games. We've got Palace on the 16th. The Thursday, we've got Legia Warsaw away. And we'll want to start that game, that competition well, because you get a good win against them, tough game, then that will really kick us off in the group. Then we've got Chelsea away, then Everton in the EFL Cup, and then Brighton at home. So Brighton, Chelsea, Palace on the back of a good result. Chelsea away, are they going to be as bad as they were against Forest? And Brighton are obviously a good team. So how do you feel about our September games?
I just think we just need. I mean, you've got to play everyone once. I think you've just got to take it as they come. You're not going to win every game. We might have a dodgy result in there, but we might also pick up a big win. So you never. I just think you've got to take them as they come. I think you can't look too far ahead. When it gets towards the end of the season, we know roughly where you're going to be finishing. The games matter a lot more. But at the minute, if we can just stop these these extreme performances, either winning by loads or losing by loads, I think that'd be ideal. If we could just a few, like if we're losing games, just like a 1-0, stuff like that. I think the perspective would be so much better.
Yeah, Steve 24/7 says we just need to go back to a gritty away form like January and February. I totally agree. I mean, we weren't playing ridiculously high lines when we got that 1-0 win away at Southampton. We dug in for that. All those games. When we beat Everton 2-0, me and Rich were there. He was getting his Stone Island badge in consistently for the photos. And we played solid. We weren't too expansive. We didn't play a massively high line. And we scored 2 good second half goals. Same against Chelsea. I don't remember having a massive high line. Spurs away was seen as being an absolute masterclass of a performance. Grit, effort, compact. So I think that's a really, really valid comment. Do you think he'll adapt his style, Max, in the away games?
I think it wouldn't hurt. I think last season we'd score a goal on the counter attack like Watkins is against Chelsea, for as an example, and then we'd have 10 people behind the ball, but not. I can't even explain it, but it was 10 people behind the ball, but wasn't horrible to watch. It was just we were just so solid, and you almost felt we were going to win the game at that point. So could just do with I think we just need that one win against a big team, and then there might come. That's all I can think, to be honest.
Yeah. I totally agree. Stacey says, I think we'll be fine. We'll come through this. We'll learn. We'll improve and move on. Yeah, good comment. Adam says something to be mindful of, but not a worry yet. It'll be a worry if we keep getting battered by the top half teams. Yeah, that is a concern for me now, because I think going into the next big team we play, what's going to happen? Rachel says, everyone's just upset on the actual performances. I think that's the point you made, Max. We know the players are better than they have shown. The Emery and players will get there. I believe in Emery. I think we all do. Steve says home form is strong. Adam says, this is a point we could easily end up getting 3 points in September. Then I'll be a little worried. Yeah, I mean, it's always a possibility. Adam, I agree to see it. I'll be looking to see where we are against Spurs, Brighton, Chelsea, West Ham, Palace, etc. Anyone below City, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Newcastle. What about Josh Feeney, says Paul Walford? I think he's probably a bit too green. What do you think?
Well, not yet, is what I'll say. I think it would be good in the future, but yeah, as that comment says, too young. You can't throw him in. If Pau Torres, if everyone's saying he's struggling with a new league, who's an experienced 35 million centre back, and not a 19-year-old or whatever he is, isn't going to be any better.
Yeah. I mean, I think he's really highly rated, and you might see him getting a bit of game time in some of the European Conference League games if they're dead rubbers. That's the one thing. If you're already qualified out of the group, then maybe you might see players like that and Kellerman playing in those kind of games. But I think otherwise it'll be a Longley, it'll be a Chambers, it'll be those kind of players playing. Max, any final thoughts and comments on our away sad, bad performance, mad, sad, bad defeat at Liverpool?
I think just as bad as it was, it's not going to happen every game. I think we got 2 weeks off and then Palace, and then we win against Palace, and then it's all looking rosy again. So you just got to take every game as it comes. It's disappointing to lose the way we did, but it won't happen every week.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, look, I'll just final comment I'll pop on there. John said earlier on, I thought I'd sort of start this one and save it to the end. How many teams won at Anfield this season? We were poor, but we will bounce back. This is still a work in progress. And I think it's a really valid comment. I think that, there's been a lot of fantastic stuff. We have to remember under Unai, the progression has been, it's been unbelievable, really. If we went from where we were in the league to finishing 10th, 12th, we would have been happy based on what happened. So, I think there's a situation there where we have to be really, really honest and open about, the kind of progression we've made. Cece, it's a great Villa therapy session. Thanks, guys. Yeah, absolutely. It's good to talk in all aspects of your life if you're worried about stuff. So we really, really appreciate, as always, all of the comments. There's been comments galore. I've struggled to keep up with it. We do try our best to read them all out. So if you haven't been read out, then I'm sorry, but we've read out more than I've probably ever heard any podcast read. So we love you guys. We really appreciate the support. Max, great to have you on a pod, mate. It's been a pleasure having you. I think you are, for those that don't know, doing some great stuff in the background as well in terms of some of the socials and some of the technology. So, some of the new stuff you've seen is Max's work. So, mate, big round of applause to you for that. Appreciate it. Hopefully, we'll have happier times to talk about in terms of future pods. But, remember, despite the bad news and the downs, there are going to be ups. So, remember, we all follow the Villa. Thanks, guys.
Up and running, and Liverpool is loud.